president. We'll be right back. All right, let's do this. Griggs, that's repulsive. All right, if you have any children in the room right now, get them out of there. This is absolutely disgusting. Let's roll this tape. I came across this horrible, disgusting video of a cat being given a bubble bath using a toothbrush. As you can see, wearing a little protection for the hair, the head, which is called, I guess, the cranium, the cat cranium.
Anyway,
this went on for, this tape lasts 45 hours. I play it all the time.
Cats don't even need a bath.
Do they?
Right.
By the way, they don't even like water.
They lick themselves. Yeah, they don't like water.
Yeah. Anyway, quite attractive. All right, shall I move over to Brian Kilmeade, or should just skip him?
The war on history continues. The Hermitage was defiled after 200 years. Andrew Jackson's grave was defiled. Believe it or not, they had to fly in specialists. It took 11 weeks to put it together, but they actually were able to clean it up. It had red paint. They painted Killer on him and his wife grave. Yesterday, Howard Keitel was able to marshal the forces and get the War of 1812 guys out. They fixed the grave site. I think it's absolutely terrible, but it's great that our 7th president is restored, and now they have security cameras, sadly, to watch his home. Wow. It's a perfect segue to my book, Andrew Jackson, The Miracle of New Orleans, which you can get for Father's Day. Today's the last day I could sign and send it to get it there by Sunday. But I'm glad it's cleaned up. Go to the Hermitage.
All right.
Greg.
Yes, thank you, my friend. Well, do you want more? Here's Chris Wallace from Singapore. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Greg, and I want you to know I'm bringing you back a Singapore sling. President Trump and Kim Jong-un strike a deal aimed at denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Will have details and reaction. Plus another busy day for primary elections and a big victory for AT&T in court. This is Special Report from Singapore. Good evening. I'm Chris Wallace, in for Bret Baier, who is traveling back from here right now and will have an interview tomorrow with President Trump aboard Air Force One. Both the president and Kim Jong-un have been gone from this island nation for several hours, but the process set in motion at their historic meeting here could play out for decades. After roughly 5 hours of talks, the two leaders agreed to, quote, complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. What exactly that means is still unknown, and President Trump is already taking some criticism for getting too little and giving too much. We have Fox team coverage. Greg Palcott in Seoul, South Korea, with reaction there. But we start with Chief White House correspondent John Roberts on the summit and what comes next. Good morning, John.
Good morning to you, Chris. To hear President Trump tell it, the next step, he hopes, is that Kim Jong-un will start tearing down the nuclear program he just spent billions building. But the president's critics doubt this new relationship will ever pay off. It was a moment for the history books. The first time a sitting U.S. president has met with the leader of North Korea. The road to get here was a long one.
We will have a terrific relationship, I have no doubt.
Old prejudices and practices worked as obstacles on our way forward, but we overcame all of them.
White House officials told Fox News the entire summit was dependent on how the first one-on-one between the leaders would go. After decades of political and rhetorical conflict between the two nations and personal insults they hurled at each other, President Trump says he and Kim Jong-un formed a personal bond.
We're prepared to start a new history, and we're ready to write a new chapter between our nations.
The summit ended with a joint communique, Kim pledging to work toward the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula in exchange for U.S. security guarantees.
The world will see a major change.
But missing from the document any language about verification, the nuts and bolts of how the U.S. will ensure that Kim is making good on his promises. President Trump insisted that will all be worked out.
It's going to be achieved by having a lot of people there, and as we develop a certain trust, and we're going to be working with them on a lot of other things, but this is complete denuclearization.
Democrats jumped on the communique as vague and toothless.
Kim Jong-un and North Korea have made commitments in the past that they have not followed. More specific commitments than we've heard during the summit. So you can't take his word for it.
President Trump also heard criticism for his pledge to end U.S.-South Korean joint military exercises, long a thorn in North Korea's side. The president calling them provocative and expensive.
Number one, we save money a lot. And number two, it really is something that I think they very much appreciated.
Trump seems to have given away 2 or 3 of the major things that Kim Jong-un wanted. A meeting, the flags next to each other, now a delay of exercises with South Korea without getting anything in return.
But President Trump also found praise from British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, who said in a statement, "This is an important step towards the stability of a region vital to global economic growth." Senator Lindsey Graham says he'd have given Kim security guarantees, too.
I'm a pretty hawkish guy, but I want peace. I don't want war. I'm willing to give him security guarantees and economic opportunity that I didn't think I would have given a year ago.
President Trump says the details of denuclearization, verification, an end to the war, and possible normalization of relations with the U.S. will all be worked out in future meetings with Kim. The president's Republican colleagues are urging him to proceed cautiously.
Working with him is like trying to hand feed a shark. You can do it, but you have to do it very, very carefully.
Democrats also criticized President Trump for giving Kim Jong-un the legitimacy of a one-on-one meeting with the leader of the free world. President Trump insists he gave up nothing other than a couple of days' travel and says he was happy to sit down with Kim if it would go some distance to saving the lives of the millions of people President Trump says would likely be killed in a nuclear confrontation between the United States and North Korea. Chris?
John, thank you. And again, join us for a special report tomorrow for Bret's interview with President Trump. The president says negotiations with North Korea might not have been possible without the tragic death of American student Otto Warmbier, who died after being released from a North Korean prison 1 year ago. Today, his parents tweeted this: "We appreciate President Trump's recent comments about our family. We are proud of Otto and miss him. Hopefully something positive can come from this." Now to world reaction. No other country has more at stake tonight from this summit than South Korea. That's where senior foreign affairs correspondent Greg Palcott is right now.
The ink wasn't even dry on the declaration President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un signed at their historic summit in Singapore, promising complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula before the global naysayers zeroed in. Iran, which recently saw the Trump administration back out of its nuclear deal, had a warning for Pyongyang.
The U.S. administration's failure to honor its commitments makes us watch Mr. Trump's behavior with pessimism, and I think the North Korean government should handle this with full vigilance.
China, showing signs of backing out of international sanctions against the North, thinks their grip should be eased.
The UN resolutions say that if North Korea respects and acts in accordance with the resolutions, then sanction measures can be adjusted, which could include pausing or removing them.
In South Korea, the country with the most at stake, President Moon Jae-in admitted he'd been nervous before the summit and wished for the best.
I spent a sleepless night. I sincerely hope that it will open a new era of denuclearization, peace, and new relationship between the two Koreas and the United States.
They might be losing more sleep after President Trump's suspension of U.S. and South Korea joint military exercises. Defense officials here say they have to figure out the exact meaning of the Trump pledge. Experts who see the drills as a defensive bulwark against North Korea are edgy.
It's a very symbolic, also very practical issue as well, because South Korea
symbolic and practical.
Yeah, in both terms.
Still, locals who have had their peace hopes raised before watch the summit coverage closely. They, who live daily under the threat of war, seem happy to see President Trump and North Korean leader Kim exchanging pleasantries, not barbs.
It's better to meeting face-to-face rather than paper-to-paper or the telephone. So
face-to-face is good?
Yeah, it is good stuff.
I want the peace in the Republic of Korea.
You want peace?
Yes.
It's Wednesday morning here in Seoul. Secretary of State Pompeo arrives here later today to explain the results of the summit, especially perhaps the decision by President Trump to suspend those military exercises here in South Korea, and then to plot the way forward, including more talks with North Korea, and then some. Chris.
Thank you, Greg. Now let's get reaction to the summit from Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. The Iraq War veteran is a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and he joins us from Capitol Hill. Senator, from the very start, you have been, in your own words, deeply skeptical of North Korea's intentions. Now that it's over, what do you think of the summit and the agreement that President Trump and Kim Jong-un signed?
Chris, first, thanks for having me on to discuss this incredible day. I think this was an important first step, but we have to remember it was only a first step. I am skeptical of Kim Jong-un's commitment to denuclearizing North Korea. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating in the months to come. I know Secretary Pompeo has already left for South Korea, and then he'll be in China tomorrow. Now it's time to negotiate the nitty-gritty details of verifiably and irreversibly denuclearizing North Korea. As President Trump himself said, it may not work out, but they had to sit down and have this agreement face-to-face before we could move on to the next phase of our negotiations.
In the agreement, Kim commits to, quote, the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Now, we'll have to wait and see what he does in terms of North Korea, but are you concerned that he is demanding that on our side that we fold the nuclear umbrella we have had for decades protecting South Korea and Japan?
No, Chris, I'm not concerned that the president would withdraw that umbrella from any of our allies. Kim Jong-un holds the only nuclear weapons that are on the Korean Peninsula, and that's one thing that's such a threat not only to South Korea and Japan and the American citizens and troops stationed there, but to the United States, now that Kim Jong-un has missiles that could reach the United States. So part of the long-standing American policy of nuclear security is that we have a nuclear arsenal to protect ourselves and our allies so they don't feel the need to obtain nuclear weapons. I fear that South Korea and Japan and Taiwan would want to obtain nuclear weapons if we weren't working towards the denuclearization of North Korea.
But, Senator, as part of the deal, you know that President Trump announced that he is going to end joint U.S. military exercises with South Korea. Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, Chris, the president said that we're pausing them for the time being. We just had the biggest single exercise each year. Foal Eagle occurs in the spring. That probably won't happen for another 9 or 10 months until the spring of 2019. I think we'll have a pretty good read on whether Kim Jong-un is going to keep his commitments until then. Meanwhile, Secretary Mattis has said he was aware of this decision and he supports the decision. Regular, everyday training exercises will occur. Secretary Mattis wouldn't have supported the decision if he wasn't confident that our troops were going to be fully ready to defend our interest on the Korean Peninsula.
President Trump says that he may start easing sanctions on North Korea even before it ends its entire nuclear program, completely denuclearizes, offering this explanation. Take a look.
I think we will do it as fast as it can be done scientifically, as fast as it can be done mechanically. I don't think, I've read horror stories. It's a 15-year process, okay? Assuming you wanted to do it quickly, I don't believe that. I think whoever wrote that is wrong. But there will be a point at which, when you're 20% through, you can't go back.
As a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, can you explain what that means when you're 20% through, you can't go back?
Well, I don't think that we should relax sanctions in any way until we're far down the path, if not at the end of the road, of North Korea's denuclearization. I think the president was just using that number as an example of the kind of steps that Kim Jong-un needs to take. He'll have to open his country to weapons inspectors. He'll need to make a complete declaration of his nuclear program. Then they'll need to develop steps to remove those nuclear materials and certify that it's denuclearized. The president is right that once you get far enough down that road, it would be very hard to reverse those steps. But we should not not relax sanctions up front, Chris. In fact, that's one reason why I always opposed the deal with Iran, because we were relaxing sanctions and we were giving concessions on the front end for easily reversed promises, as opposed to getting concrete action from our adversary and then taking action at the end of that process.
In the meantime, the president says that he is going to maintain his sanctions regime, although he's not going to call it maximum pressure anymore. But he did say that since the negotiations had started, China has eased up on some of its tight controls on activity across the border. It seems that South Korea is anxious to begin trade with North Korea. And the question I have is, has, by normalizing things, appearing here, meeting with President Moon of South Korea, meeting with China, has Kim Jong-un already succeeded to some degree in weakening the maximum pressure campaign, not necessarily by the United States, but by the rest of the world?
No, Chris, I don't think he has. China's always played a double game when it comes to North Korea. On the one hand, saying they want to denuclearize North Korea, but on the other hand, propping up the regime economically, financially, and politically. They really only came to the table over the last 18 months because of the president's approach since last January. The South Korean administration that took office earlier this year simply had a different approach than previous administrations did. The president has done a good job in developing a rapport with President Moon in South Korea and trying to keep a close alliance structure between South Korea, Japan, and the United States to ensure that that pressure campaign continues. And while the president may not want to say it after the summit, I will say it. We need to continue maximum pressure on North Korea until they denuclearize.
Finally, President Trump had a number of very optimistic things to say about where things stand now with North Korea. Here are a few clips.
It's a very great day. It's a very great moment in the history of the world. I have, I think, a very good relationship with Chairman Kim right now. I really do. I mean, you can't ensure anything. All I can say is they want to make a deal.
Senator, do you share President Trump's optimism?
Well, we've certainly broken out of the rut of 25 years of failed U.S. policy towards North Korea. I don't know if Kim Jong-un is going to keep his commitments or not. The president obviously has spent hours with him now, and very few of us have the benefit of that experience. I hope the president is right. But because the Kim regime, both Kim Jong-un and his father and his grandfather, have a long history of duplicity, we need to continue our pressure campaign. We need to hold Kim Jong-un to his commitments. I think we'll find out in a matter of months whether he's willing to keep those commitments.
Senator Tom Cotton, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Chris.
Stocks were mixed today. The Dow lost 2. The S&P 500 was up 5. NASDAQ gained 44 for a record high finish. After the markets closed today, a federal court approved AT&T's $85 billion purchase of Time Warner. The Justice Department filed a lawsuit to stop the deal, saying that AT&T's ownership of both DirecTV and Time Warner would give it unfair leverage against rival cable providers. AT&T argued the merger would allow it to gain information about viewers needed to target digital advertising, much like Facebook and Google already do, and the court sided with AT&T. Up next, the Department of Justice versus House Republicans over how the Russia collusion probe has been conducted. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 2 in the Oakland Bay Area and Fox 5 in D.C. with parades for their world champion sports teams. The Golden State Warriors were honored today after their 4-game sweep of Cleveland in the NBA Finals, and Washington Capitals fans jammed D.C. to celebrate their Stanley Cup win over Las Vegas. Q13 Fox in Seattle as the city council votes 7-2 today to repeal a tax on large companies like Amazon and Starbucks. The about-face comes just 1 month after the council backed the measure to help pay to combat a growing homeless crisis. Businesses vowed to put a repeal effort on the November ballot. And this is a live look at a remembrance ceremony at the site of what was the Pulse nightclub in Orlando from Fox 35. The big story there tonight, survivors and victims' relatives marking the 2nd anniversary of the shooting at that night spot. 49 people were killed and 53 injured when a gunman opened fire in the early morning hours of June 12, 2016. Last month, a memorial opened to the public at the site of the massacre. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back. President Trump's trade advisor has apologized for saying there is a special place in hell for Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Peter Navarro says his language was inappropriate. The comment came after President Trump and Trudeau disagreed over trade policy. Also tonight, the White House says the president's top economic advisor is doing well after a mild heart attack. Larry Kudlow is said to be in good condition at Walter Reed Medical Center in Maryland. The number 2 official in the Justice Department is playing hardball with congressional Republicans who are investigating the Russia collusion probe. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is in Washington tonight to tell us about it. Hello, Catherine.
Well, thank you, Chris. The emails reviewed by Fox News were sent to the House Office of General Counsel to document the January closed-door meeting that included Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, FBI Director Christopher Wray, their senior advisors, as well as the Republican House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes and his senior staff. The account claimed Rosenstein threatened to turn the tables on the committee regarding the Russia probe. Quote, the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein criticized the committee for sending our requests in writing and was further critical of the committee's request to have DOJ FBI do the same when responding. Committee investigator Kash Patel wrote, going so far as to say that if the committee likes being litigators, then we, the Justice Department, too, are litigators, and we will subpoena your records and your emails, referring to the House committee and Congress overall. The emails reviewed by Fox News indicate a second committee staffer at the meeting backed up the account, writing, quote, let me just add that watching the Deputy Attorney General launch a sustained personal attack against a congressional staffer in retaliation for vigorous oversight was astonishing and disheartening. Also, having the nation's #1 for these matters law enforcement officer threaten to subpoena your calls and your emails was downright chilling. Both the FBI and Justice Department disputed the characterization. A Justice Department official told Fox News Rosenstein never threatened a criminal investigation, writing, the Deputy Attorney General was making the point, after being threatened with contempt, that as an American citizen charged with the offense of contempt of Congress, he would have the right to defend himself, including requesting production of relevant emails and text messages, and calling them as witnesses to demonstrate that their allegations are false. The official went further, saying the Deputy Attorney General, quote, will further request the House General Counsel conduct an internal investigation of these congressional staffers' conduct, adding Chairman Nunes did not complain after the meeting at a dinner with Rosenstein and a mutual friend. In a statement to Fox News, Nunes said they take staff concerns seriously and referred the matter to the Speaker's office. A source close to the Speaker said they have encouraged the committee to work through the Justice Department's Inspector General's office. The Justice Department official said no formal complaint has been filed at this time, Chris.
Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
Up next, we'll tell you what's at stake in primary elections in several states tonight. First, beyond our borders, Israeli police have begun evacuating Jewish settlers from 15 homes built illegally on private Palestinian land on the West Bank. Dozens of settlers protested the evacuation, with some throwing stones and bottles at police. After the eviction, Israeli forces are expected to demolish the structures. Italy's new government is claiming victory after Spain offered safe harbor to a private rescue ship denied permission to land in Italy. The ship had been stuck in the Mediterranean Sea since Saturday when Italy demanded Malta take the 629 migrants on board. Malta refused, and Spain accepted the ship and the migrants on Monday. Britain's Justice Minister resigned today so he could vote against his own government on legislation supporting his country's exit from the European Union. Conservative lawmaker Philip Lee, who voted to remain in the EU in the British referendum in 2016, is calling for Brexit to be delayed. Just some of the other stories beyond our borders tonight. We'll be right back. Voters are going to the polls right now for primaries in Nevada, North Dakota, Virginia, Maine, and South Carolina. Republican Congressman Mark Sanford is a vocal critic of President Trump. He is facing pro-Trump state legislator Katie Arrington. In Maine, 11 candidates are trying to replace term-limited Republican Governor Paul LePage. Voters there use the ranked choice system for the first time in a statewide election. Northern Virginia Republicans will choose between incumbent Congresswoman Barbara Comstock and retired Air Force pilot Shaq Hill. And in Nevada, Democrats are slugging it out to get the party nomination for governor. Chief Correspondent Jonathan Hunt is in Las Vegas tonight.
How you doing? I'm Steve Sisolak. I'm running for governor. How are you?
Hey. Hi. What's your name? It's the toughest race in Nevada. Two Clark County commissioners seeking to rally the Democrat base in a year when the party believes it can win the governorship for the first time this century.
I'm the best candidate because I've got the experience.
I've been a progressive before it was a word. Hillary Clinton has also weighed in to boost Chris Giuliani's liberal credentials.
I've known Chris for many years, and I've seen how she's been an extraordinary progressive leader for Nevada.
Chris Giuliani single-handedly protected perverts.
In a bizarre election subplot, Chris G, as she's known, was accused by a group supporting Sisolak of being soft on sexual predators. She responded by revealing she is herself a survivor of sexual abuse.
That 8-year-old girl was me.
Giuliani has courted the women's vote.
I don't want people to vote for me just because I'm a woman, but I do believe that that's an added value.
But she doesn't argue with Sisolak's contention that Nevadans are more focused on each candidate's policies rather than gender.
What they stand for, where they've been, and what their plans are moving forward. They don't vote for someone in Nevada based on their gender anymore they do based on their height or their weight. Thanks for coming out.
On the Republican side, Nevada Attorney General Adam Laxalt is expected to breeze through the primary, brushing aside the challenge of State Treasurer Dan Schwartz. And he's already focused on November and the predictions of a so-called blue wave for Democrats.
There is no blue wave here. It doesn't exist. In fact, we're looking forward to a red wave.
Confident you'll be the next governor of Nevada?
We feel very good about this race.
And this afternoon, Adam Laxalt got the president's endorsement. Mr. Trump tweeting, "Adam is smart, works hard, and knows how to win. He will be a great governor." Now, polls close here at 7. We will likely know the Republican result immediately. The tight Democrat race will probably take a good while longer for us to be able to call. Chris?
Jonathan Hunt reporting from Las Vegas. Jonathan, thanks for that. Senate Leader Mitch McConnell made history today. Correspondent Peter Ducey tells us how.
Mitch McConnell became Senate Republican leader 11 years, 5 months, and 10 days ago, and now he's had the top spot a day longer than former Senator Bob Dole, making him the longest tenured GOP leader ever.
He understands the Senate better than anybody else here.
Former Senator Trent Lott had the job for 5 years.
I think it's the toughest leadership job, political job in the city.
McConnell says he plays the long game. His majorities have passed tax cuts but failed to repeal Obamacare. And in 2010, he took heat for outlining a different priority.
Our top political priority over the next 2 years should be to deny President Obama a second term.
6 years later, when outgoing President Obama nominated Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court, McConnell declined to consider him until after the election.
The American people need to weigh in and decide who's going to make this decision.
Democrats criticized McConnell for breaking tradition.
We're setting an incredibly dangerous precedent.
I, Neil M. Gorsuch, do solemnly swear.
But McConnell waited and later helped confirm Neil Gorsuch.
He's reasonably able to control his people. That in and of itself is something to be credited with.
He's also the rare Republican who dares to share laughs in public with his Democratic counterpart.
He plays his cards very close to his chest, but he'll just sit there and listen and listen and listen.
But sometimes Republicans break ranks, like Senator Ted Cruz, who once called McConnell out about the Export-Import Bank.
I cannot believe he would tell a flat-out lie.
There are also Republican candidates who try to capitalize on anti-McConnell sentiment.
One of my goals as U.S. Senator will be to ditch cocaine Mitch.
In D.C., there's not much of an appetite to remove the Republican leader.
He's been right so many times, so it builds confidence among his colleagues.
But on this, the day that McConnell finally broke the record, his own members aren't listening to him. Multiple Republican senators have told me that today at lunch, McConnell implored Republicans to stop blocking Republican amendments, and multiple Republican senators proceeded to leave lunch and block each other's amendments. Chris?
Peter Ducey on Capitol Hill. Peter, thank you. When we come back, the panel weighs in on the historic Trump-Kim summit.
We have developed a very special bond. So people are going to be very impressed. People are going to be very happy. And we're going to take care of a very big and very dangerous problem for the world. It worked out for both of us far better than anybody could have expected.
President Trump talking positively as he and Kim Jong-un signed a joint statement at the end of their Singapore summit. Let's bring in our panel back in D.C. Molly Hemingway of The Federalist, Mara Liasson from National Public Radio, and Byron York of The Washington Examiner. Byron, your thoughts about the summit and that agreement that we just showed that President Trump and Kim Jong-un signed?
Well, I think the most reasonable assessment you can make of it is that we don't know if it's going to work out or not. In the joint agreement that the two leaders released, Kim pledged to, committed to denuclearization, but previous North Korean leaders have pledged to the same thing and not done it. So you can't say. There are also other issues, talk about the U.S. military exercises, whether that's really a big concession or not, since Tom Cotton earlier on this program said the next big military exercise is next spring, so that if Kim is operating in bad faith, we'll certainly know that by then. My sense was it's a net plus because of the relationship between the two leaders and what has been said, but you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I want to pick up, Mara, on Byron's first point, because Kim, in the joint statement, committed to complete denuclearization. That's the quote. But he did the same in his first meeting with South Korean President Moon back in April. Do you see anything more here? Do you see any more details, any more meat on the bones?
Not yet, but that's why Secretary of State Pompeo is now going to pick up the ball and see if they can do that, flesh it out. Denuclearization means one thing to the U.S. and it means something different to North Korea. I think they see it more as a freeze. But the one thing you can say is this is so much better where we are now than when they were threatening to blow each other up. And as long as they're talking, they're not going to war. And even if this ends up with only a freeze and not complete, utter denuclearization, that's still better than what we've got now. I think the only danger for the president is that it's going to be hard to keep up the sanctions regime because that really depends on China. And as long as Kim Jong-un is talking to the U.S., it seems like China's already beginning to back away from enforcing sanctions.
Yeah, let's pick up on that point, Molly, because the president says he's going to keep the sanctions up. He's not going to call it maximum pressure anymore, but he says that's what it's going to be. But he also complained that China is easing up on patrol.
That it's in their interest to have a different course of action than the one that they have taken. Sanctions are key to helping them see that it is in their best interest to have a new approach, a less bellicose approach, one where there is more freedom in terms of free enterprise and individual liberty for their people. And so I would hope that everyone would understand the importance in keeping this together. We might need to ramp up our pressure on China and other countries to make sure that does take place.
Molly, your general thoughts about the summit. There are some critics who are saying that the president gave too much considering what he got. Do you think that's fair?
I mean, it's kind of funny. We've had so many pundits be so wrong for so long. A year ago, we were told that we were on the brink of nuclear war because of the approach that President Trump had taken, that we would never get to a summit, that he would never walk away from a summit, that we couldn't hit a June 12th meeting. Time and time again, the foreign policy experts have been wrong about what would happen with President Trump's very different approach from the bipartisan consensus that we have seen leading up to this. In fact, we have not, like previous meetings that we actually had to give cash money to get them to the table. We didn't have to do that this time. We have a lot of leverage. They also are a nuclear power, which puts them in a different position than they have been in previous scenarios. This is a really good first step. As Byron and Mara pointed out, the word commit is in this agreement agreement, I think 8 times. The devil will be in the details. This is the first step. It's a very promising step. There is reason to be happy, but we have a long way to go to see that this actually accomplishes the peace that we all hope for.
Byron, I want to go back to this issue of denuclearization, because the way it is stated in the joint agreement is the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Now, for the U.S., that means the North Koreans get rid of their nukes. For the North Koreans, it means that all nuclear weapons are gone. Now, we don't have nukes in South Korea, but we do have bombers with nukes. We do have ships with nukes. We do have submarines with nukes. Given the fact that this calls for the complete denuclearization of the peninsula, and the president agreed to end the joint military exercises with South Korea, any concern on your part that there's a danger the U.S. will fold its nuclear umbrella, which is a nuclear guarantee to protect South Korea and Japan?
No, I don't think that's contemplated, and I think the president actually specifically did address that is not in the United States definition of denuclearization. One additional thing, talking about the sanctions and whether they had, what effect they had on this. Yes, I think tough sanctions on top of previous sanctions did have a big effect, but also the threat of war had a big effect. I don't know how many analysts we have heard over the years saying that war is not an option on the Korean Peninsula, or war is unthinkable on the Korean Peninsula. Well, the Trump military team was thinking about it. They were working through scenarios, and I think the North Korea's knowledge that this seemingly unpredictable man who had become the president was actually working through plans for war in Korea, I think that really caught their attention.
All right, panel, we have to take a break here. Next up, the optics and standout moments from the summit here in Singapore.
Mr. Chairman, it's a great honor to be with you, and I know we'll have tremendous success together, and we'll solve a big problem, a big dilemma that until this point has been unable to be solved.
Well, that was the signature moment from the Singapore summit, the 13-second handshake between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, the first time the leaders of their two countries have ever met. And we're back now with our panel. Byron, let's start with a handshake and with President Trump saying to Kim, it's a great honor to be with you. Your thoughts?
Well, the criticism is that by doing this and appearing on the same stage, the president legitimized Kim Jong-un, and instead he should be an international pariah. My sense was that here again, this was, if you consider this all in its entirety, this was a net plus for the United States. Also, this is the way Donald Trump talks. When he lays the flattery on somebody, maybe this wasn't appropriate here, but when he's trying to get something out of someone, he lays all sorts of flattery on them, and that's what he did throughout in his public appearances with Kim.
Mara, President Trump said that he did bring up North Korea's horrendous human rights situation. Here's how he described it, President Trump did, in his news conference.
It's a rough situation over there. There's no question about it. And we did discuss it today pretty strongly. I mean, knowing what the main purpose of what we were doing is, denuking, but discussed it at pretty good length. We'll be doing something on it. It's rough. It's rough in a lot of places, by the way, not just there.
Yeah, until the end, he was...
Mara, your thought... I was going to say, your thoughts about both the comments from President Trump and his, do you really think there's any realistic possibility that Kim is going to change his brutal ways?
Absolutely not. And the president was pretty clear. Denuking is the most important priority. It's an existential threat. And he does care about human rights, but he wasn't going to make that the top priority. And then, of course, at the end, he qualified it by saying kind of there are other bad actors, too. So he seemed to not want to criticize Kim Jong-un at all.
You know, I, as someone who covered the Reagan-Gorbachev summits, he did bring up human rights, but it really wasn't until the fourth summit, when they were in Moscow and President Reagan met with the dissidents, that he really pressed on human rights. I don't know that it ever had any impact. It did after the fall of the Soviet Union. But, you know, obviously these presidents, Mara, seem to keep their eye on what they think is the biggest ball, and in this case, it's denuclearization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me go to you, Molly. The U.S. side, it turns out, put together a video of showing what the economic potential for, and this is the video prepared by the White House government, showing Kim and his team what the potential economic development of North Korea could be. Here was President afterwards at his news conference continuing to make his pitch.
I said, boy, look at that. Wouldn't that make a great condo behind? And I explained, I said, you know, instead of doing that, you could have the best hotels in the world right there. Think of it from a real estate perspective. You have South Korea, you have China, and they own the land in the middle.
I have to say, I kind of enjoyed President Trump returning to his roots as a New York real estate developer. Your thoughts about that, Molly?
Well, there really is something about the United States having excellent exports of economic freedom, rule of law, individual liberty. These are things that are good for people. They're good for countries. And I think this video was about showing the North Koreans that there is a new approach that they could take, that there is a different path that they could be on. And it is true that countries sometimes do choose to take different paths. You just mentioned Reagan and Gorbachev having meetings. That was obviously a dramatic detour that the Soviet Union took. You know, there used to be an East Germany and a West Germany, and now they are united. People can make decisions to change. And as unlikely as it might seem with Kim, it is still good to put that other vision forth and have him consider the possibilities of not having to brutally oppress your people in order to continue to be in power, but by having opportunity for everybody, that would be a new way to have strength. And if people are open to it, and you know, there's so much that would need to be done to make this happen, and it is very unlikely, but it's worth making the pitch.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's awfully hard to get a brutal totalitarian regime to change the way it goes. I want to go to one last point, and that is a comment that President Trump made almost at the end of his press conference. Here it is.
I think he's going to do these things. I may be wrong. I mean, I may stand before you in 6 months and say, hey, I was wrong. I don't know that I'll ever admit that, but I'll find some kind of an excuse.
Yeah, that was pure Trump.
Yeah, it was. It was quite charming. Let me go quickly down, and I really want you guys to go quickly. Byron first. Where do you think we'll be in 6 months?
Well, I foresee some progress on this simply because the events that led to this summit, the threats and all of this stuff, were a different series of events that led to previous failed efforts. So I think there's a possibility for progress here.
And Mara, your thoughts
I think
about
that in
where
6 months,
we will be in 6 months.
In 6 months, I think they'll still be talking. I think there won't have been another test by North Korea, and they won't be threatening to blow each other up. So I think that's progress.
It's also,
you know, I think we should point out, you know, going back to Reagan-Gorbachev's summits, you know, everybody talks now about what a great success it was. In fact, they had made absolutely no progress after 2 summits and 2 years. It was only when they got to Washington in 1987 that they signed the INF Treaty. So, you know, even with the best of intentions, these things don't go quickly. Molly, your thoughts about where we are in 6 months?
And it is important to keep that perspective that it can take a very long time to find out whether today was the first day of a very successful summit. It is also true that change needs to happen pretty quickly. We need to see some indication that North Korea is serious. Hopefully within a month or two, they have put down some real deliverables so that we can know whether we're moving forward or whether we're dealing with the same old Kim regime that makes high promises but doesn't back it up. I think that this negotiating team that we have currently is not like the ones that we had previously. They're looking for more deliverables.
All right, panel, thanks so much. When we come back, President Trump shows Kim Jong-un the beast.